There we go. Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome to this session and good morning to our host, Simon, and thank you for introducing us so nicely and making sure this event runs seamlessly. Hello there, students. I hope that you are all keeping very well. Welcome to the session on LSMD202. Guys, if you have any questions, I would like the session to be as interactive as possible. So there's a Q&A at the bottom of your page. Please feel free to pose any questions as we go. I'm very happy to answer any questions. You can also put your questions in the chat box. And yeah, so anything you want to ask me, I'm available and I'm ready to answer. So I'm just going to share my screen with you to get started with today. I see there are no questions or comments yet. So I'm just going to share my screen with all of you. Simon, can you confirm you can see the PowerPoint? Okay, Simon's not.
Yes, yes,
okay.
Sarah, it looks good.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, students, so what I've planned for today, this is our learning event on the 30th of May, is I've got a few ideas of things that I will deal with. Please feel free, as I said, to jump in and ask questions. The questions do not have to be related to this content. The questions can be related to anything within the module. But I thought what I would do today is give a little bit of feedback on the class assignments, those class tasks you've been submitting. We'll talk a bit about how to integrate the creative arts in the Grade R classroom. I thought it would be useful to talk a little bit about assessment of the creative arts. And then I'm going to talk about reflection, because your final class task involves a reflection task. So I thought that would also be useful for today's session. So the first thing I wanted to do is actually take you to the CAPS document. So I don't know if I've done a hyperlink here. Simon, are you able to see the CAPS document, or is it still on the PowerPoint?
Sarah, depending on how you've shared your screen, I think it may just be focused on the PowerPoint. Okay. You might just want to restart your share with your whole screen.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to stop the share of that, and I'm going to now share. I've got the CAPS open here. Okay, so here we are looking at the CAPS document. And guys, the reason that I bring you to the CAPS document is so far you have submitted your task on music, and thank you for those. I marked them and I returned them. And you've also submitted your class task on movement. Now, I haven't looked at those yet because the grace period only ended last night at midnight, but I will look at those early next week and get those back to you as soon as possible. But I wanted to bring your attention to the fact that Grade R is in the CAPS document. So if you're struggling with what you're going to do in your lesson, you're not sure what tasks to set them, the CAPS is where you're going to get this information from. So if we look, this is the English Life Skills CAPS, so you need to download the CAPS document. I will put a link onto our ECI page. In fact, I think there's possibly one there already. I'll check. If there isn't, I'll make sure it is there. So if you go down to page 22, oh, jump the gun. All right, here we are. Page 22, you see Term 1, Grade R, Creative Arts. So if you're at a loss of what to do, or loss of what outcomes your lesson might cite, this is where you're going to come to. And here we've got things like, here might be a nice drama one with a bit of music integrated. This one over here, spontaneous use of voice and movement in participatory rhymes and stories. So this is similar to the lesson, I did a lesson plan for you guys on movement, and it was similar to this outcome. That movement example I gave you, I used a book and I read the story to the class and we did the different movements of the animals. That's something that you could possibly use. Here, I know our music one is over already, but here's another one you could have used for music, singing action songs using different parts of the body to interpret the song. So I know one of our students did, in fact, I think all three of our students did songs that were action songs. And this is an outcome that you could have taken directly out of the CAPS and put into your lesson plan, just to make that link between our curriculum and what we're doing in the classroom. So we've got the way that the CAPS works is the creative arts is separated into two streams. The performing arts, and guys, the performing arts is drama, music, and dance, exactly what we're doing in this module. So you want to look under the performing arts section. The CAPS also has a visual arts section, which obviously we haven't dealt with in this module. So you're going to ignore that. That you look at when you do the visual art module. But here, really come and have a look at things that you could integrate or things you can utilize in your upcoming drama lesson. Here's another one, improvising stories based on fantasy or own life experiences using voice, movement, music, props, objects, and drama techniques. So that's a lovely lesson idea because it actually fits in with what we talk about in our study guide about integrating voice, singing, movement, drama into a whole activity that has integration in it. And I'm going to talk about integration shortly. So this is only term 1. You can scroll down to the next page and see term 2. Here's a nice one again for drama. Dramatizing make-believe situations, fantasy, and own life experiences. You could plan a lesson like this, where you as the teacher create a few scenarios. The learners have to act them out. You could talk about having a fantasy box in the corner, which we talk about in the study guide. Fantasy box with dress-up clothes, props, etc. You could lay the props out so the learners could pick up the ones that they think are useful for their make-believe situation. The sky really is the limit here, guys, and your creativity is going to be really important in terms of how this activity comes to fruition. So I just wanted to show you this because I was aware in that first assignment that I didn't think many of you had looked at the CAPS document. So please have a look at it. And guys, I don't mind what term you pick your outcome out of. It can come from any term. It doesn't have to be because we're in the second term. Well, who knows what term we're in now since we haven't been at school for so long. But you can pick it. You can pick from any term. So do have a look at this. So there is a formal curriculum for the creative arts in grade R. So it's important that you do have a look at it. And there's some nice ideas here and really things that you could utilize. Here's another one, concrete objects to represent other objects in dramatic play, such as a spoon as a magic wand, a hat as a steering wheel. So really also trying to get your learners to be creative about the way they see objects. And grade R children are so good at this. I think I've already told you that I have a 5-year-old in this house, a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old. And somewhere in this house, they had these sticks. And the stick used to have a net on the end. So we bought them when we went to the beach. And the net has long since fallen off. But these sticks are used for everything. They are used as magic wands. And they are used as things that they hop over. They are used to demarcate areas. So this is my house, this is your house. Here the sticks are on the line. They're put down and they are balanced on. So you can see at this age, children have huge scope for imagination. So that's another outcome that you could pick up on in your drama lesson. Okay, so I'm just going to stop this share and go back to the PowerPoint. I did just want to show you that. I don't know which one to go back to, that one, I think. Okay, so that was our CAPS document. So I'm going to talk now about what creative arts integration is. And I'm hoping that you're all seeing the slide that says, what is creative arts integration? So we have a definition here from the Kennedy Center. And it says, arts integration is an approach to teaching in which students construct and demonstrate understanding through an art form. Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. As integration is where you use the arts as a way to teach many, many, many different things. So, and especially in grade R, when learners are so creative, so inherently creative, it is a wonderful way to bring the curriculum alive for them and to bring tons of different learning experiences alive. So, for example, I hope that all of you in your grade R classroom will start off the day singing a good morning song. So singing good morning to all the children in the class, good morning to the teacher, and so on. And there are a variety of songs that you can use to do that, many of which are on the internet, so I urge you to have a look at some of those. What would you do in your morning ring after that? Maybe you'll talk about the weather. So what about singing a weather song? And utilizing movement and song to indicate what kind of weather it is. It's sunny, it's rainy, for example, it's cold, it's hot. Okay, so utilizing song and movement right from the beginning of the day. Then we know that songs are a wonderful way to teach things like the days of the week, the months of the year, counting. I'm sure two of you submitted in your assignment that song of 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. And that is a great way to teach children counting up to 5. And that actually counts backwards, because we've got 5 little monkeys jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. Mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, no more monkeys jumping on the bed. The next time we recite it, we say 4. Okay, so that's just an example that I know some of you are familiar with, but that's another way that you can integrate music and movement and so on into your classroom. And that, of course, is not a song, that's a chant. Okay, so a chant, we're not using a melody, but we're chanting the words. So let's go back to our definition here. Students engage in a creative process. So when we're using arts integration, we want it to be a creative opportunity for our learners, which connects an art form and another subject area and meets evolving objectives in both. Okay, so maybe your objective to do with your morning ring is that you want them to learn the days of the week or the months of the year or the seasons or whatever it might be. And your music outcome might be that you want to teach them a song. And you use a song to teach the days of the week, for example. So guys, really, and especially in grade R, and especially in the foundation phase, using the arts is such a wonderful way to hook our learners in. I remember in that first session that I did with you, I also talked about marching around the school. So if they're going off to have their lunch, get them to form a line and be soldiers one day, and they're going to march. And the next day they have to be quiet and nice, creeping to the lunch table, or creeping to the playground, or to the bathroom. And the next day you're going to get them to be kangaroos, and they can jump. And this, of course, can fit in with the theme that you're teaching that week. So really try to be as creative as possible and think of ways to integrate the arts across all our different learning areas. Here's just a quote that I really liked by Crawford, and she says, if our goal is for children to become knowledgeable, critical thinkers who are good at solving problems, we need to pay attention to the how of teaching. So I think we pay a lot of attention to what we're teaching, but she is arguing here that we need to look at how we're teaching it as well. We need to stimulate curiosity. We need to teach children how to analyze problems on their own and let them practice solving these problems creatively. Okay, so if you do a drama lesson, for example, where you say we're going to act out, get into this little group, there are 3 of you here, we're going to act out going to the shops, for example. Now the 3 little children have to work together to solve the problem. How are they going to act this out? Maybe one of them is going to be the parent, 2 of them are going to be the children, or we're going to have a mum and a dad and a child, and there's going to be some discussion and some problem solving around, first of all, who the characters are, around, second of all, what they're going to act out. Maybe there's going to be problem solving about what props they're going to use. Okay, so this really gives us an opportunity for learners to solve problems creatively. And the last sentence of this quote says, we need to help them energetically absorb, remember, and apply skills and knowledge. And the arts can help us to do this. And I've just spoken about how using a song might help our learners to remember the days of the week. So using a song is going to help them to absorb, remember, and hopefully ultimately apply the skills and knowledge that they've learned through that song. Okay, so we really want to try and integrate as far as possible. Okay, I've got an example here that's taken out of the CAPS document. So one of the themes in grade 3 that you might deal with is transport. Okay, so if you're looking at transport for 2 weeks of the year or 2 weeks of the term, you need to sit down and think about how you are going to integrate the arts into this theme of transport. Excuse me. Okay, darling, don't worry. You take it and keep watching. Okay, don't worry. Go upstairs. Okay, it's fine. I'll phone them later. Okay, my apologies, everybody. That was the 5-year-old I was telling you about. And I've done a very bad parenting trick. I've let them watch YouTube while I'm videoing this session. And of course, a phone call came through while they were watching. So she had to come and tell me. My apologies for that, but this is the reality of working from home. Okay, so I was talking about transport. So you need to think now, you know you've got your theme. How are you going to integrate your art forms into this theme of transport? Okay, and first of all, to do with music. Maybe you're going to sing some songs about transport. And an obvious one, a very easy one, is The Wheels on the Bus. But of course, that you are not confined to that. You should look on the internet, you should do some research, you should find some different songs. But that's one you could start with. Another idea with music, perhaps you could use some sound effects. Make transport noises to create a soundscape. So a soundscape is a time in your classroom where everybody in the classroom is making noises to create a particular kind of feeling or to depict a certain scene. So you could say to them, right, we are going to create a very, very busy road. What kinds of sounds do you hear on a very busy road? Someone could say, well, I hear trucks, for example, and some of them are going to make truck noises. Someone else could say, well, we hear cars, and a group of them might make car noises. Then someone says, well, sometimes a helicopter comes overhead. So you've got a group of them who are going to make the helicopter noise. Some of them might say, well, a train might come past. So you've got some making a train noise. And you bring them in like a conductor. So you say, right, our trucks, you're going to start. Okay, trucks. Yes, you get loud, and now our cars are coming in. And suddenly we drive past a train track, and our trains, you come in. Okay, now helicopters. And then we hear, because I live in Durban and I live on top of the Berea, we often hear the ships in the harbor, and they do their big boo to indicate that they're coming in or out. And then maybe you get some of your learners to make that sound, and you create a soundscape. This is also a good opportunity to teach loud and soft, because you can teach them piano and forte, piano being soft, forte being loud. Some of them can make the sounds loudly or softly. Or maybe you get the whole class to be loud, and then you bring them all down and they become soft. So that's just an idea there. For movement, maybe you're going to ask them to move around the classroom, imitating various modes of transport. So for example, right, everybody, let's be aeroplanes. Can you all show me what it is like to be an aeroplane? And they move around. Can you show me what it's like to be a helicopter, a train, a bus, etc.? And every day, move like a different mode of transport into or out of the classroom. So you can say, we're going out for lunch now. We're all going to be helicopters going out for lunch. And your learners will make their or whatever. There are lots of different ways that they could signify a helicopter through movement. And that is what makes the creative arts so exciting, is that we have open-ended answers. People can do a variety of different movements and still be a helicopter. Okay, and maybe then with your transport theme, you're thinking of dramatic play. Maybe with drama, you're going to have transport-related props and dress-up items in the fantasy play area. Maybe you'll have a pilot's outfit or a cap that looks like a kind of cap that a pilot wears. Maybe you'll have some beautiful dresses as if someone's going on a cruise, on a ship. Maybe you'll have some Formula One outfits, you know, how they dress up. So you could have some transport-related props and dress-up items. Things like steering wheels are really good. And we just said a steering wheel doesn't have to be a steering wheel. It can just be a circle or a hoop. But then the children can pretend as a steering wheel. You can do some guided imagery activities related to transport. So you can ask all your learners to lie down on the floor, close their eyes, and imagine what it's like to be on a boat. So what would it feel like? Are you rocking from side to side? And then you can say to them, imagine, where is your boat going? What things are you passing? What animals are you seeing in the sea? Okay, so that would be a nice guided imagery activity with transport. Finally, you could also do some pantomime activities. So pantomime, get them to mime out. Tell a little group of children, right, you're going to mime going on a train. And they have to make that movement as if they're on a train. And maybe the other children in the group must guess what mode of transport they're on. Guys, these are just a few ideas. This is not, by no means a definitive list. There are millions of things you could do. These are just a few things I thought of. So really, as I said, the sky is the limit here. Be as creative as you can about ways you can integrate music, movement, and dramatic play into whatever learning area you're doing at that time in your classroom. Okay, so I hope that has helped with integration. Just want to talk quickly now. I see there are no Q&A yet. Please, as I said, feel free to ask questions as we go. I just want to talk a bit about assessment though, because I think that often teachers become quite, you know, we all fall into this trap of emphasizing other areas of the curriculum more strongly than the arts. So you can find yourself at the end of the term thinking, I don't know how they've done in the arts, because you've been so focused on other skills they've been building, literacy skills and mathematical skills and so on. So I really wanted to talk about this because it is not difficult to assess children in the arts. What it does take is organization and structure. So there are two different ways, and Costa suggests these, so you can go and follow up in your textbook after this. There are two different ways that she suggests you can collect data or information about how you're going to assess learners in the arts. And the first, she says, is the collection of real records. Okay, real records are actual records of what they've done. Now, in visual arts, it's quite easy because you maybe have their pictures or their paintings. But obviously, in music, drama, and dance, it's a little bit more difficult because things happen in your classroom in a moment and then they're over. So real records would be things like taking videos of your learners as they're doing an activity, taking photos as they're doing an activity. Now, guys, we just need to be aware here that there are some problems with real records as well. First of all, there's obviously the issue of a lot of parents do not like their children to be photographed and they do not like their children to be videoed. So the first thing is you need to check what your school policy is on this issue. Is it something that the parents are happy with, or is it not? Once you have that data, so you have a video of your learners doing a dance, you need to also be very careful about what you do with that. So it is not to be shared on YouTube. It is an infringement on the children's rights if you post something without their parents' permission. So just be a little bit careful. The other thing you also need to think about is the fact that often children behave differently when they see you are recording. So you might not get an authentic idea of how that activity went, unless of course you do it so regularly that the children get quite used to the camera being there. So that's something you're going to have to think through and decide. It's going to depend on your circumstances and your class and your situation. I would suggest you probably go with the other solution, or you do a mixture of both perhaps. And she also suggests careful observation. Now, you know, as a grade R teacher, you have to be observing those learners all the time. And why not in the arts as well? And there are two ways she suggests for careful observation. The first is anecdotal records. Now, an anecdote is a story that illustrates a point. So, for example, if you see a child, Tabo, picks up some instruments that are in the side of your classroom, and he starts to play them and he taps out a rhythm, you could quickly run and make a note. Write the date, Tabo picked up the instruments and made a good rhythm. And that is what an anecdotal record is. Now, if you go with this method, I suggest that you have a book and you have on the top of each A4 page, you have a child's name. And every time you see that child doing something artistic, you jot it down. That's also going to help you to see which children you haven't got any data on. So, you know, Tabo maybe picks up those instruments all the time. So you're writing down things often about him. But poor old Linda, you've got nothing because she never picks up the instruments. So that'll help to be able to see which information you've got and which you don't. So that's quite a good way of doing it in a grade R classroom, but a little tricky if you have a big class, because obviously keeping these records will be quite tough. So another way that's quite useful is using checklists. Checklists might look a little bit like this. This picture comes out of your study guide, where you have the names of your learners down the left-hand column, and you have all the things that you want them to be able to do that term along the top. And where are you going to get these things? You're going to take them out of CAPS. You're going to see what they should be doing in each term in the CAPS document. So here we've got keeps a steady beat, creates rhythmic patterns, uses props to create a character, etc. When you see a learner doing or achieving one of these, you can give them a tick. If you see them half being able to do it, so they're getting there, they haven't maybe quite achieved it, but they're getting there, you can give them a half tick. So you see Sam has got a half tick. Okay, so that's another way to keep records. And I would say if you have a large class and maybe, you know, you don't have enough time to observe everybody individually, checklists is probably going to be the easiest way to keep an accurate reflection of where your learners are at and what they're able to do and what they're not able to do. Okay, so that is our bit on assessment. I want to now talk about lesson reflection. And I think this is quite important because it also fits in with our activity that we're going to be doing in your class task number 4. So you're asked to reflect on this module. I'm just going to quickly, okay, I'm sorry. I actually have no idea how much time I have left. Not very much, I don't think. Okay, I think I've gone for about half an hour. So I think I have about 10 or 15 minutes left. Okay, so that should be enough time to talk about lesson reflection.
Sarah, you've got about 15 minutes left or so.
Thank you, Simon. I must really next time have a watch on. So I apologize for that, jumping up and looking at my kitchen clock around the corner. Okay, so that's great. We've got enough time to talk about this. So folks, lesson reflection. Now, this is something that I think a lot of teachers neglect. And I am as guilty of this as anybody else. And I think part of the problem is we live in this really fast-paced world where, you know, we don't necessarily always have the time. We don't think we have the time at the end of a lecture to jot down some ideas. But I say lecture for me because I'm lecturing, but for you it will be a lesson. But really, guys, this is so important to take time to reflect on a lesson. And especially as a beginning teacher, to think, right, this is the first time I've done this activity with my grade R learners. What has worked about it? What hasn't worked about it? And I think these questions are quite useful. What worked? What was good about this lesson? Because, guys, there's never a lesson that's all bad. There's often lots of things that are great about a lesson. What didn't work? Okay, and here we need to be quite honest. We need to be brutally honest. with ourselves about what didn't work in a lesson. There we go. Sorry, another call. So we need to ask what didn't work. And guys, here you have to be honest with yourself. Now, another thing that I want to tell you is sometimes this doesn't have anything to do with you as the teacher. Sometimes it's just the class. So many years ago, I used to teach English in London. And it was quite an interesting model because our learners would come in for 3 hours a day. They were all foreign language students. So they were people who came from all over the world. And they came to London to learn to speak English. And I would teach the same lesson in the morning from 9 to 12. And I would teach the identical lesson from 3 to 6, but to a different group of students. And it was an amazing experience for me because I learned that sometimes there's nothing wrong with your lesson. Sometimes that particular lesson just doesn't work with that group of people. Because sometimes I'd have a situation in the morning where the lesson went fabulously. Just everyone loved it. It was wonderful. And the exact same lesson would fall flat in the afternoon. So I think that's an important lesson to learn. And I was so lucky to have this opportunity where I got the chance to teach the same lesson twice. Because ordinarily, you're not going to teach the same lesson until maybe the next year. So you're going to think, oh, this is a terrible lesson. I'm going to discard it. And maybe it's just that it didn't work with that group of learners. So I think the important thing to take away from here is not every lesson is all bad. They're often good parts. And our lessons need to be tailored to the group that we're teaching. You know your grade R learners. You know what their interests are. You know what their shortcomings are. You know what they're good at and what they're bad at. So adapt your lesson so that you're playing into the advantages that you have. For example, if you have a group of learners and a lot of them are very interested in dinosaurs, that is something you want to pick up on as the teacher. You want to bring that into your class and use it more than perhaps you would ordinarily because you know there's already an interest in dinosaurs. So what I'm saying here really is when you reflect back on a lesson, don't be too hard on yourself. Think, was it the lesson or was it perhaps that this group of learners just didn't enjoy what I was doing, didn't appeal to them, they weren't interested in it. And then think the next one, which is I think the most important, actually the last one's the most important, but very important. How can I improve this lesson? So what must I take out? What must I leave in? And my most important one, what would I change if I were to deliver this lesson again? And guys, you can jot that down quite quickly at the end of your lesson. You just say, right, this worked, this didn't work, need a new song, need more songs. The lesson was too short, it was too long, I expected too much of them. So just try to jot that down. So lesson reflections are really important for you as a teacher, and especially as you're putting together your file or your folder of all the different lessons that you are creating. And as a new teacher, that's what you do. You put in a lot of work in the beginning. And then when things do work nicely, you are able to re-deliver them again and again. But always bring in modifications. So what didn't work? How could I improve on this? And this is why we say teachers are lifelong learners. We never just trot out the same thing year after year without looking at it, without critically thinking about it, without updating it. For example, I think last year that song Baby Shark came out, and preschool children love that song. So now, if you were doing a lesson on sea animals, under the sea, underwater, you'd be foolish not to use that song because it's a song they love, it's a song they all know. You can get instant buy-in to your lesson if you use the Baby Shark song. Now, a few years ago, that song didn't exist. So that's why I'm saying you need to keep thinking about what you're doing, updating it, making it relevant, and critically thinking about what worked and what didn't work. This is something that teachers struggle with, but I do think that it's useful to get learner responses. And your grade R children are going to be very honest with you. If you ask them, did you like that lesson? What did you like about the lesson? What didn't you like about the lesson? Did you prefer this lesson to the lesson we did on I don't know, dinosaurs, for example. So don't cut yourself off to this opportunity from getting responses from your learners. Guys, it can be very useful as a teacher to actually hear what the learners are thinking. And sometimes we also have the incorrect perceptions about ourselves. We think something about a lesson, and maybe your learners think something completely different. So get into the habit of asking your learners for responses about your lesson. Did you like it? Did you not? What didn't you like? Do you like the song? Do you want to sing the song again? Don't you want to sing the song again? So that is going to be very useful for you as a teacher. Okay, so I want to talk through now class task number 4. And this, guys, is your final reflection. So this fits in with what we've just spoken about as in reflection, reflection in the lesson. But what we're asking you to do in this task, we're asking you to take it a step further. We're asking you to reflect now on your learning journey in this module. So how are you going to do that? So let's see what we ask you. We say, write an essay of 800 to 1,000 words, 3 pages or so, in which you reflect on your learning journey in studying this module. So we want you to look at, first of all, what were your initial perceptions and views on teaching music, dance, and drama prior to studying the module? Okay, so what you're going to want to do now, you're going to want to think back to 4 months ago, 5 months ago. What did you think about teaching music, dance, and drama in the grade R classroom? And here you can draw on your own experiences of school. So you can say, well, I did think it was important, or I didn't. When I was at school, I didn't have music, dance, or drama, or I had no recollection of it. You could talk about the fact maybe you thought you have a terrible singing voice, or you thought that it was not useful. So really try to think back to what your experiences were a few months ago. Now, hopefully, in studying this module and going through this module, you have learned, or your perspective, your ideas on music, dance, and drama have hopefully shifted a little bit. So how is your perspective regarding the learning and teaching of music, dance, and drama in grade R shifted or changed as a result of studying this module? So often I find, and I've been lecturing music and dance and drama for many years, is that often I find learners feel quite concerned before they start this module, because they feel I haven't studied drama, I don't know how to dance, so they feel a little bit incapacitated. And hopefully what we've really done in this module is shown you that anyone can teach these subjects. A bit of creativity and a bit of critical thinking and drawing on your learners' interests and tapping into the things that they love. Hopefully you have changed your perspective somewhat. Is there a key learning that you are taking away from studying this module? So is there something that stands out for you that's been a takeaway from this module? How you have developed as a teacher in music, drama, and dance through studying this module. And guys, here I also think you might want to draw on, you can see how you're going to have developed over the lesson plans that you've submitted. So you've submitted one that's been marked already. You've now submitted a second that will be marked early next week. And you're going to do a third one. And hopefully over these 3 lesson plans, you're also going to see a development, that your ideas have been different or been more creative. You've taken the feedback that I've given you, and I've been very careful to make sure you've got your lesson plan back before you've submitted the next one. So maybe there's learning that's happened over these 3 assignments as well, or just in the module as a whole. And how you will approach the teaching of music, drama, and dance in the grade R classroom differently. So is there a way that this module has influenced the method that you're going to teach going forward, your approach to teaching, anything like that? So what you need to think about is really yourself pre this module. What perceptions did you have? What ideas did you have about music, drama, and dance? And how have these ideas changed, developed, shifted over the course of this module? So we also give you a few guidelines. Please do have a look at your textbook and your study guide. We do talk about reflection and self-reflection in quite a lot of detail. So please do go through that before completing the reflection. Folks, please, your essay, your assignment needs to be written in the form of an essay. Now, I know you've all done ACL with me, so I request that you go back and look at those notes. You need an introduction. In your introduction, you're going to lay out what will be in your assignment. You're going to lay out what you're going to discuss. You're then going to have a body, but your body is not going to be one continuous body. It's going to be paragraphs. So think about your ideas beforehand. Create a mind map. Think about how you're going to work through the different ideas one by one in order to explain to me how you've changed your thinking or how you've developed in this module. And of course, folks, we need a conclusion. We say here you should conduct some research to approach the fourth part of the task. So how you will approach the teaching of music, drama, and dance in the grade R classroom. So you're welcome here to look at other sources. In fact, you're encouraged and required to look at other sources. Have a look at how music, dance, and drama is taught elsewhere. Have a look at some of the experts who tell us how we should teach music, dance, and drama. So please feel free to conduct some research, and you may use your textbook here, but of course we encourage you to also read further just than your textbook. So really do try to go online. In ACL, we also talked about how to get onto the EBSCO host, and I will post those details on our ECI page as well in case you've forgotten. So please do some further reading. How should music, drama, and dance be approached in the grade R classroom? And how have you kind of made that transition to how you were before the module to hopefully now where you feel a bit more comfortable teaching these subjects? Folks, all of your sources must be correctly referenced. Please use the referencing techniques guide. This is on our ECI page, so it's right at the top, so there is no excuse. I have been pleasantly surprised at your referencing, or not pleasantly surprised, I've been pleased, let's just say, put it that way. I've been pleased at the way you've approached referencing so far. The errors are fairly minor, but please now try to develop yourself as a referencer as well. I've pointed out the errors in the assignments you've submitted so far. Now try and see if next time you can eradicate those errors. So go back and look at the comments I've made and try to improve upon your referencing as you develop through this module. Review the assessment criteria, and we'll have a quick look at that. So we have here a reflection on your personal development, that's 30 marks, so how you've developed. Your discussion of how you will approach the teaching of music, drama, and dance going forward is 15 marks, and referencing is 5 marks. Guys, you do need to conduct research and you do need to reference it correctly. If not, you're really going to be losing out on marks there. So this is not just a personal reflection, also looking at the underpinning of what the research says and what the research tells us about how you should be teaching in terms of comparing where you've come from and where you're going to. Okay, folks, just to take you through our final activities that are coming in. We've got our drama task. This is due on the 4th of June. Please, as I mentioned, please use the CAPS document for that. So the link is on ECI. Go and have a look. If you're feeling unclear about what outcomes to use, please draw on that. I will post an example drama lesson early next week for you to have a look at. Please do also watch all the videos on ECI. There are lots of nice videos with drama ideas. Your study guide and your textbook also have ideas. The final reflection is due on the 15th of June. And finally, our online test is on the 17th of June. And that online test will basically deal with things from the whole module. So folks, treat this as you would an exam. Now, obviously, you're going to have your textbook and your study guide next to you. So you are welcome to look at those. I'm not saying don't look at them. but don't come into this unprepared. You need to have a good idea of the scope of what this module is covered in order to deal with the questions effectively. So even if you have your booklets with you, you only have an hour to do the test, so you don't have time to start reading your study guide from the beginning to the end. You need to know, if I ask you about dramatic play, you need to know, okay, that's drama. If I'm talking to you about pitch, you need to recognize, okay, this is music. I can find the answer in the music section. So you do need to have a good sense of where everything fits into the module, where it fits into the section. I think I'm done.